Alright, looks like we're good to go. Welcome back everyone to yet another Moonshire Monday. Thank you so much for being here. Today we're going to be working on some pixel art, and bear with me as I get the setup figured out and everything working, because if you've been to the last stream, I've been changing my computer setup, so things are a little bit chaotic, but I'm working things out. Everything will be alright. And I'm seeing a bunch of folks in chat already. I'm going to give it a few more minutes for the latency to kick in and for everything to line up. I am working on a new intro for the stream, so there can be a countdown, because whenever the streams start, there's always a minute where it's not kind of lined up for folks. So having a countdown would really help with that. You're 2 minutes late? No, you are not 2 minutes late, because I just started. Hello everyone. I'm seeing folks like Wolf and Mariah and Anthony, Robert, Thresh, John Lemon, Krish, thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate that. I love seeing all the familiar faces and everyone coming here to support. I really appreciate that. Like I was saying, today I'm going to be working on some pixel art. I'm going to be taking a look at some of these older sprites that especially Ellie worked on. Ellie worked on the Bunyip and the Tengu, but these are kind of it's been a while since these were implemented into the game. And I think that there's a lot of things I can do to improve on them to fit the new scheme of how everything works. How can we expect the game release? I know, it's taking a while. I know. I want to make a video explaining why exactly things take so long. And the progress isn't very visible. Because that's the big thing, is that I've kind of just been redoing the same stuff over and over again. It's been iterating on the same ideas and not really making much progress. The wheels are spinning. And I do like the changes I'm making. I think the new direction that I'm taking things is really good. And overall, the final product I think is going to be better than what it was before. But the trade-off is that it's taking way longer than I thought. Way longer. I'm so behind, and the progress just is very slow. But it'll get there. I really am excited for the future of this game and all the stuff that I'm working on. How's it going? It's going good overall. Adele, Yagzox. Sorry, some of these names are kind of hard to read. One thing you'll notice about me is that I stutter the most, I think, when I'm reading the chat. I don't know. I have a lot of practice to go. Streaming has been really good for me because I have a stutter, and streaming has helped a lot with controlling that better. How's the progress this week? Also kind of minimal, but I have a lot of ideas for things I want to work on today with the pixel art. Because all of the progress I've been making, because I can pull up my GitHub. I'm going to pull up my GitHub for Moonshire. And I do... Oh, I'm not signed in. I'm not signed in right now. I don't want to sign in right now while I'm streaming. Okay, I'll have to do that later. But what I want to work on today is these sprites, and I'm also going to pull up this file to kind of understand what I'm talking about, because over here, this file contains all of the old enemies sprites. So all the stuff that was in the Steam demo, or anything that I started work on, it has the bosses and everything too. And what I want to do is take the best ones of these and make sure that they fit the new format, because specifically, the new format for the hero is that it's split up into, it's split up into layers. And everything is a mob now. I made this decision that in the code, the player is the same, entity type as these enemies. Even the AI-controlled ones are going to use the same mob class. So the idea is I want to make sure that all enemies follow a similar design format. I wonder if you can dodge talking about AI this week's stream. There is 0% chance I can dodge it because there was actually an AI update, and I'm going to see if I can find it at some point, because a big talking point with AI is that Steam has an AI policy. Disclosure... survey. So they recently changed how the survey for AI works. And I haven't read this article, but I read an article that's similar to it. So let's go ahead and... Oh my gosh. I think the browser crashed again. Oh no, there it is. It's just terrible. Okay. I hate all these ads. Why is the internet so bad? Okay. Valve has significantly rewritten Steam's rules for how developers must disclose AI use. So, for those that don't know, on Steam, if a game has used AI in any capacity to create the game, then they actually have to disclose that on their Steam store page. So if the product has AI involved with the development of it, they fill out this survey, this AI use survey, and then at the bottom of the Steam page, it'll explain how AI was used. But it's been a really contentious point, because what does AI in games even mean? Because obviously we can agree that if someone like generates a bunch of images and then those images are in the game, that's pretty clearly AI use in the game. But the big thing that was a talking point was AI-powered tools. AI-powered tools. So the big question that a lot of people were wondering is, if someone is coding their game and they have like the autofill setup turned on. So like if I have the if not, you see how it like autofills this stuff? Like that's a form of generative AI. And it was a big unsure question for developers on what their stance on stuff like this was. Does this count? You know, does this count as AI? And it always, you know, it does. It is AI. But the purpose, I think, behind the AI disclosure survey, JJK, hi, welcome in. The whole point behind this survey is mainly to give clarity to buyers, because there are a lot of Steam store buyers that are opposed enough to AI assets or AI generation that they don't want to play games that have any aspect of that in the game. But we have reached a point, and Steam seems to agree, where AI-powered tools, it's so ubiquitous. It's a different kind of AI. So AI-powered tools is the big thing that this content policy has changed, and this just happened in the past few days, is now it seems like the AI-powered tools such as coding, or maybe it might be more broad than that, we'll have to read up on it, are mobs/enemies AI, like the Ghosts in Pac-Man, for example. They are AI, and that's the problem with using AI as like a blanket term, because AI means so many things. I'm very glad that they're adding more clarity to this topic, because it's a very new and fresh topic, and when people say AI, that means so many different things to so many different people. Of course, everyone agrees that the Ghosts in Pac-Man are AI, and that the Ghosts in Pac-Man are a perfectly acceptable form of AI to use in games, because if you took out artificial intelligence completely from games, you would not have very interesting games. But the flip side of that is there are people using generative AI to generate the full script, or generate all of the images, or a lot of the 3D models, or some of the textures. And like, it's debatable. I personally think that in some ways those are fine, as long as the final product is really good in quality. But I think a lot of people are seeing a lot of the slop content. There's a lot of bad content generated with AI, and it is unsettling, uncanny. It feels bad. I do personally also prefer artwork made by humans, but I think that there is some value to be had for like these tools that assist in those processes, or if there's like minor streamline to the pipeline you can make, you know. I think that's all I'm talking about. So this is just a new rule where I think that it's going to apply to fewer games. I think that most games probably have some form of AI-powered tools as part of their pipeline, like code review or automated testing. Like, it's hard to get around generative AI in those spaces. So now that's kind of it's more clear. If those kinds of AIs didn't exist, there would only be multiplayer games. Yeah, exactly. Is that if we want any sort of progress in the space, some AI use is good, and some of it is probably not so good. And also, like, we're in a transitionary phase where, I don't know, it's just a touchy subject, and I understand why. I just suspect that this is going to be more prominent in the coming years rather than less. I have a feeling we're going to see more generative AI in games in the coming few years rather than less generative AI. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. But regardless, I am happy about this change just because it was a very unclear point, and it helps a lot with that. Dan Mariah, Musical Keys, thank you for being here. I appreciate that. So I want to start taking some steps like with this character here. And I want to start splitting this up into the different layers. So if we take a look at the player is split up into the different layers. And this is just a built-in feature that mobs have. And this is helpful because mainly it helps with having them hold objects. So like if I go into the game right now and I start this, I noticed that the performance is so bad right now. I don't really know why. It's probably because I'm streaming, but I don't know why it's so bad. Because before I started streaming, it was fine. Yeah, look how choppy this is. This is horrible. Why did I open this up? I was talking about something, but then I got concerned about my about my performance. Because yeah, look how choppy this is. I have to imagine this has to do with the fact that I'm recording and streaming at the same time. I'm still in Linux. So, oh, that's another thing I should talk about. That is, I spent a lot of time on the Linux stuff, and I switched back to Linux or to Windows for this stream. And by the way, Jams and Music should be back. I switched back to Windows because that issue with the flashing did not go away. So I did install all the necessary drivers. I made sure that things were working correctly. Oh, and this is the main thing, is I was using Ubuntu for the stream and for all of my like computer setup with this new build. And I had many problems with Ubuntu. Like, I don't know if it's just anecdotal. I don't know if it's just me. I just had bad luck with it. But so many of the programs that I tried to run were really buggy, and it was like graphical errors. And you were seeing on the stream last week that there was this like weird flashing going on. And it's just some programs were not running properly. It was driving me nuts. So I created a new partition and I installed Linux Mint, which is just a different version of Linux, a different distro. And that one was flawless. I had absolutely no problems with it. It was so smooth and so fast. And honestly, if I could choose between that version, like that distro in Windows, I would choose that one. But that flashing issue on stream where like the window would flash awkwardly, it was so obnoxious. It was still happening. It was still happening on Linux Mint as well. But I think that so far in this stream on Windows, we haven't had any problems. So I'm kind of concerned it's like an operating system level, because it is odd that it only has this problem on both Linux operating systems, but it doesn't have this problem on Windows. That's just evidence for me. I don't know what the truth is or what the deal is, but anyway, let's go ahead and try and work on the layers for this. So I'm going to take this whole image and I'm going to make a new document. Actually, I could probably just save. I'm going to save this as and this is going to go in sprites, mobs, and I'm going to make a new folder for this. I think most mobs are going to be a folder of layers. Excuse me. I'll call this Bunyip. And it's going to be Bunyip Aseprite. Whoa! Did you see that? It went black for a second. Long time no see. Hi, Fitz. Got into understanding mechanics, and I feel the progress is getting substantial now. Awesome. I choose to stick to Godot for now, and I've been making some simple sprites. Awesome. I think Godot is an awesome choice. I'm excited to try it at some point, especially for 3D. At some point, I'm going to switch to using a 3D. Or, well, I haven't decided. I want to start making 3D games at some point. And I don't know if I'm going to use a 3D engine. I'll probably start with that. But I also wouldn't mind trying to code my own thing, because I think I get it now. My dream game is an isometric survival RPG type game. Is it hard to make those? Yeah, that sounds very, very hard. But my advice is make a different game first. Like that game sounds like that should be someone's like dozenth game. My advice for everyone is like the first game you make is gonna be bad. It's like the first song you learn how to play on piano is gonna sound bad. The first painting you fully create is not gonna be very good because it was your first one. So don't make your dream game first, because then it's gonna turn out bad. Like I don't want your bad. I don't want your dream game to turn out bad. The only possible way that your dream game is gonna turn out good is if it's not your first one, because your first game's gonna turn out bad. Yes, Pong mentioned exactly. Your first game should be Pong, because then your first game is gonna be a bad version of Pong, and that's way less embarrassing than a bad, what was it? An isometric survival RPG type game. Like that sounds cool. That sounds fun. But if you spend a few years working on that as your first game, it's not going to turn out very well because it's your first game. Pong. Oh, you know, I really should add a command for that. That'd be cool. What should I do if I do that? If I should add a exclamation point Pong. But what should that do? I could make it do anything. Embarrassment is the cost of entry. It definitely is the cost of entry. But an embarrassing game is worth the same no matter how much time you put into it. You get some value out of the challenges you overcome while developing the game, but if a game is embarrassing, I would prefer to spend as less time as possible on it. Make it a show game of Pong. I think I could add like a custom emote or something, or I could add something in the overlay. So let's see. What I want to do is, the reason I converted this file to an Aseprite file, I'll show that real quick. It's a .asprite file now. The reason I changed that is because in order to use the different frames and the different layers, a lot of the like extra functionality of Aseprite, it has to be an Aseprite file. So these PNGs, or I guess it would, yeah, these PNGs, an image is just an image. It's what you see is what you get, is an image. But if you wanted to have frames or layers, that stuff requires Aseprite, like the Ace files, because that can store all of the frame data and all the layer data. I'm making a different game first, don't worry. Yeah, I'm with you. Has to do with determination and persistence. Well, it definitely does, because it's time consuming. I mean, I've been making games for so long and I haven't even released any of them for money. I just found out yesterday, did you know you can see thumbnails on your timeline / layers? You can see thumbnails on your timeline / layers. Are you talking about like this thing? Are we talking about Aseprite still? Oh, I'm sorry. I might be out of, oh, instead of the dots. Oh, really? How do you do that? Because I don't like the dots. The dots are bad. Where would that be? Show. Click the icon beside the onion skinning to the left. The icon. Oh. The icon behind the onion skinning to the left. I'm sorry that my I'm missing it. Thumbnails. Wow, I didn't know you could do this. That's so cool. Scale up to fit. That's awesome. In this example, it's not super helpful just because the sprite's so big. But let me see if I have a better example of an Aseprite we could look at. This is a pretty decent example, because this Aseprite file has the frame data for all of the different layers of the tree, like this. And it is a little bit awkward that down here, the dots, you can't see like which one is which. But like that person was suggesting, I could turn on thumbnails and make them kind of big. And now you can see them down there. That's actually pretty cool. That's a nice little feature. I like that. Thank you for the suggestion. I love that. Yeah, in this example, it's not as useful just because the sprite is so enormous. So a thumbnail for it would be too small. But in cases where I'm like animating a character, you can see each frame. That's nice. Do I use OOP for programming the game? Yeah, overall, I'd say yes, I do. Because even though Love 2D isn't even though Lua isn't a object-oriented language, you can still use tables in a way that mimics classes and objects, such as what I'm doing here. Jump is the class, and this like __ index makes it behave more like an object-oriented object. And then this is like a factory. It's creating a new instance, local self, and then self.mob. It's able to return self and create new instances of jump in that way. For animation, it's not the best, but for creation, it's nice. You can also move the timeline / layers to the right, like in Photoshop. That might be helpful too. I think I would probably prefer it down here for now, actually. Do I find inspiration for the enemies, or do the ideas come from yourself? So a lot of the enemies start with actually open source or paid asset packs. I'm gonna see if I can find an example of this. Well, I definitely have a few examples of this, and actually I pay for a bunch of the enemies, so I have several examples of things that I do to make these enemies. So, and let's go through all of them. All the examples. We have an example like the skeleton. This is an enemy that I made from scratch entirely on my own because, and it's based off of the Necrozone skeleton. So I made a skeleton for a different game a long time ago, and then I adapted it for this game. So I made this enemy entirely on my own. Then I knew that there was some other enemies that would be a little bit more complex. Like the Bunyip. This character was commissioned. I paid Ellie Sprites to design and make this character. I specifically gave her like a storyline or the lore behind these like swamp creatures called Bunyips, and I explained what I wanted them to kind of look like, and then she took that and created the character. So I commissioned a lot of the characters. She made some other ones as well. Well, like the funny part is this character, iWasp. This character is a combination of all of it, because this character is actually based off of an asset pack, but then I edited the asset pack so extremely that you can't really even recognize this. You can't even recognize the original sprite anymore. And then after I edited it a lot, I handed it off to Ellie, and then Ellie made even more edits to it. And actually, so I think the order of operations for this character was the sprite originally came from an asset pack, and then I edited it to be like more of a flower, and then I handed it over to Ellie to kind of like smush it down and be more compact. And then I made the big eyeball on top of it, I think. Yeah, I was the one that made this big eyeball part. But I think that Ellie kind of set up the... You made the concept for the little skelly dude? I don't think that you made the concept of a skeleton. I think that biology did. How'd you come up with the game names? Moonshire seems like it took you a while. It did. And the way I came up with Moonshire is that I was thinking of all kinds of different like portmanteaus of different like fantasy names. Like I don't want to pull up the list because it's just a really big list of fantasy words, and then I tried to merge them. But the big consideration is that when it comes to names, is you have to have tons and tons of options. The way I come up with names is I have a big document like this, and I write down a bunch of words that sound cool, like moon, or nova, or star, or nebula, or oasis, or slash, or sword, or magic, or mana. So I just like throw words at the wall over and over and over again until I have a document of like 100 words. And then I take these words and I start combining them. And in this case, none of the, like, you can't really combine these words. Like star mana is pretty lame, or moon sword. But then I was like, okay, I have when it comes to names of like games or something like that, there's more to it than just like objects. There's also, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm gonna see if I can pull up the. I'm gonna see if I can pull up the name, because it really is a good. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. I really wish I could, because yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to find the official list that I was working off of. But what I was gonna get at is, I looked up like roots, because you can Google search or AI search for give me a bunch of roots, or what's the term, parts that are at the end of the word. So like this process where I came up with a bunch of words, I just brainstormed so many different words and started combining them together. And this is the main thing. Don't use AI for pixel art. I don't use AI for any art. I had to do it all myself. Actually, he chooses Moonshire because he doesn't want the game's police to know that his character is making moonshine. Yeah, that's definitely what it is. Yeah, I mean, definitely the reason why it's in all capitals is because of that. That's for sure. But literally, what happened, how I came up with Moonshire, is that I was going through this process of like throwing words at the wall, and one of the words was Shire. And as I was combining them, I said, oh, Moonshire. Actually, there was a few of them. I thought Shire was a really good one. And I came up with like Nova Shire and Gold Shire and I don't know, Star Shire, sure. So let's say that, and this is the thing about coming up with names of your game or anything, is that these names are going to be taken. Even if you come up with the perfect name, it's gonna be taken. It's gonna be taken. Goldshire, I think that's a city in World of Warcraft. That's already taken. So, like, I remember after I came up with this list of just words that I liked, and then I came up with this list of portmanteaus, I had to Google search all of these to see which ones were available and which ones were not. And Moonshire was available, kind of, but at the same time, I had to buy the domain name, so it wasn't fully available. Yeah, so I'm gonna Google search Goldshire, because I think that's like a, yeah, it's a World of Warcraft town. Come on, man, the performance of the computer right now is really, really bad. Oh my gosh, why does that keep doing that? But anyway, so like, obviously, since the city already exists in World of Warcraft, I'm not gonna name my game that, because it's just gonna be confusing, and I don't want to compete with the, you know, it's called SEO, search engine optimization. Moon Nova is cool. Yeah, that's all right. And task manager. Let's see. Hopefully there's nothing wrong with me showing this. GPU is going high. It seems all fine. It's just a little bit slow. I use AI to come up with pixel art sprite references and go in Aseprite and make completely unique and original drawing. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. So that sounds similar to paying for like human-made sprites, because like I don't have any issues with people doing that if they want to do that. But I personally don't use AI for art at all. I prefer paying for pre-made human-made sprites and then using those as my references, and then just because I just haven't personally been impressed by the artwork made by AIs yet. Am I commenting too much? No, you're doing fine. Did you buy and install any assets like sounds or pictures, or do you draw and make everything yourself? No, I pay and make assets from pre-made stuff all the time. I would say that I would say most of the environment tiles, I'm going to try and running the game again, but for some reason the performance is just so bad. Why is this so choppy? I'm getting like, what in the world is going on? That makes me so sad. I wonder what the deal is. But a lot of these environment tiles, like the water tiles and the ground tiles, those came from asset packs, and then I edited them to match my art style a little bit better. Because a big thing about using sprites made by other people, even if you commission them, even if you get them from pre-made asset packs, and probably, I don't know this, but probably if you use an AI, is that the art style is not going to match what you're going for exactly. The art style is going to be slightly off, and it takes a human touch to get involved and touch up these sprites to make sure that they all blend together nicely. Because if you just take other people's sprites and put them in your game, even if you commission them specially for your game, I don't think they're going to blend in very well. I think that's going to be too obvious when something is a different asset pack. Oh my gosh, I'm so annoyed at this performance. Look how bad this is. I'm going to try and find an example. Because, like, the house is... Oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. I can't even look at this anymore. I'm going to have to do some research and figure out why the performance is so bad. Because, you know, when I used to stream from Windows a couple weeks ago, the performance wasn't that bad. Maybe I just need to restart. I don't know what it could possibly be. How do the flying petal particles work? That's a great question. Let me pull that up. So that's in effects. It's either in effects 1 or effects 2. It's in effects 1. Effect. So petals and leaves behave the same way. The way it works is when the petal spawns, it's going to spawn to the up and to the left. And you know, I could probably make this a configuration where it's like, depending on where the wind is coming from, depends on where it spawns. But you can see that right now, the petals are coming from the up left. And all this means is that when the petal is spawned, it's going to spawn at a random position in the game, and then translate itself up to the left. Or, I know, my camera's inverted, you know. It's going to spawn up here, and then all it does in the code is it starts a tween. Is final X and final Y? Well, in this case, it sets final X and final Y to where it spawns at, and then after that final position is calculated, then it offsets itself here. But essentially, it's doing this tween transition where it's just going from one point, and in this case, it's actually just a linear transition from one point to another. But then it also has these left and right motions. So it's doing several different motions in one. Is that the petal is moving in a diagonal downwards in a straight line, just a straight diagonal downwards. But while it's doing that straight line downwards, it's also doing a left and right tween. So it's doing a left and right tween while it's doing that diagonal motion. So it's combining this tween here, which is doing that diagonal motion, and then it's combining with this tween here, which is going to cause it to go left and right, which causes it, like, that's how it achieves that, like, slowly floating down sort of thing. And actually there's two different flow patterns. There's one where it floats down left and right like that, and then there's one where it kind of just like hovers over to the side. What am I doing right now to the game? I'm working on sprites, but I keep getting sidetracked because that's how my streams always go. all I want to do mainly is split this character up so that the head is on one layer, similar to how it is over here. Because the goal is, for all these sprites, that a mob would be able to be played as if it's a character, like a player. And right now in this setup, where it's all one big sprite, it wouldn't work pretty well. And same with this. Like, this is a very old idea that Ellie put in, where this Kotengu is carrying a leaf. But I think it would be better if this Tengu was flexible enough in its sprites where it could hold any weapon. Like, imagine that this sprite was just him holding an invisible weapon, and then we could swap this sprite out for a variety of different weapons. It could be a variety of different enemies now. We wouldn't need to have a whole different sprite sheet just to have a version of the Tengu with a different weapon, is what I'm saying. And it's the same with the Bunyip. Is like, this Bunyip is unarmed, but what if I wanted to have a version that did carry a weapon? What if there was a version of the Bunyip that had a spear, or that threw a boomerang? Because one thing I was thinking about is how the Bunyips, by the way, Bunyip is, I think it's from Australian, like, mythos. There's a mythos around Bunyip in Australia. And so I thought it would be funny if there was a version of these Bunyip that had a boomerang to keep with the Australia theme. Is there a map? Yeah, there's a map, but it's very buggy right now. I don't even think I can show it. What am I supposed to do if I have no idea how to fix a glitch or an exploit? You're asking a really important question, and you're asking a question that explains why it's important to be super knowledgeable about your own code. Because when you get stuck on a problem, and everyone's going to get stuck on a problem, by the way, there's no avoiding that. If you are not fully in tune and fully in touch with your code base and how everything works, as you're finding out, finding the solution to a problem is very hard because you don't fully know all the context. And it's hard to even like it's hard to Google search what to do. And you could like ask an AI to help with the problem, but if it's not able to fix it, then what do you do? And even if it could fix it, it does reveal a glaring issue where there's some fundamental issue going on that you're not fully aware of. And I have those issues a lot of the time when it comes to engine level things, because in my game, I fully understand how the code of like all the game logic works, but I don't fully understand how like the engine itself interacts with the computer or how it renders certain things. There's certain aspects of the pipeline that I'm not fully in touch with, and so when there's some kind of bug that involves that stuff, like the engine level stuff or rendering, then it really trips me up because I'm not fully aware of it. I don't fully understand it. If I was the type of person that developed my own engine from scratch, then I would be able to solve those issues a lot more clearly. I'd have a much firmer understanding. People like Thin Matrix on YouTube, he makes his own engine, so I imagine if there were some low-level rendering problems, he would have a pretty clear understanding of how to fix that. Unlike me, I rely on Love2D for my rendering, so if there's a bug with that, I would kind of have to reach out to the Love2D team to help me. Or, you know, dig into it and learn. That's always an option too. So actually, my solution for you is that you just have to learn deeply how your code works and what exactly is going wrong. If you can explain the bug that you're discussing, maybe I have some ideas on things that you can look into. Can you use Visual Studio with Love2D? You can, yeah. I use Visual Studio Code, and in general, guys, Visual Studio as a brand is kind of confusing because Visual Studio is different from Visual Studio Code. So if I look up Visual Studio on Google, it comes up with Visual Studio, right? But this program, Visual Studio, is different from this program that I'm using here. This program here is called Visual Studio Code. It's a different program altogether. And I don't even know if it's going to talk about Visual Studio Code in here. In my Visual Studio Code, it really doesn't. So it's like a separate product entirely. Visual Studio Code. Okay. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because Visual Studio Code is very similar to Visual Studio. They are both IDEs, integrated development environments. It's essentially, they're both code editors. You can edit your code in both of them. But the thing about code is that they're just text files. Like, if I go over to the code, the source code, like this update.lua file, it's literally just a text file. You can open it in Notepad, and look, it's just text. So all the code in the game is just text. You don't need Visual Studio to code. You don't need Visual Studio Code to code. All you need is a text editor in order to code. But these programs, Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code, they offer some features that are helpful compared to trying to, like, if we look at Notepad, like, trying to code in this is a lot more annoying because there's no features. If we look at Visual Studio Code, you can see that, like, all the text is colored, and there's, like, syntax highlighting, and it has the autocomplete stuff. I want to see if it, like... Yeah, so, like, you can, like, put in stuff, and then it, like, automatically fills stuff in. And then it has, like, the Git integration, source control. It has the search. It has other extensions. So all of these features make an IDE, like Visual Studio Code, really helpful. Now, then, there's the difference. What's the difference between Visual Studio Code and Visual Studio? Because they are both similar. They're both just code editors. But Visual Studio, this one, is much bigger, much larger, much more complex, and it takes more power and energy to run. Visual Studio is just a stronger, bigger... imagine this. Imagine that you were hammering nails into a board. Imagine that you were just trying to nail things together. Okay? You have two options. You have Visual Studio Code, which is like a regular hammer. Okay? Visual Studio Code is like a hammer that you can hammer nails with. And Visual Studio is like a sledgehammer. It's like a huge sledgehammer that you would use for very big, complex topics. Very big, complex code. It can do a lot of stuff. With a sledgehammer, you can sledge any sort of nail. It can nail any nail, even big railroad spikes. But using a sledgehammer to nail in small nails is very hard. It's very annoying. It's very cumbersome. Because a sledgehammer is huge. It's huge and heavy. And it's annoying swinging around a big, heavy hammer when it's much easier to use a smaller hammer. So that's the difference. Is that there are times when you do want to use a sledgehammer. Because some projects, some tasks are complex where you need a big set of libraries and a big set of tools that Visual Studio offers. Compared to Visual Studio Code, very lightweight, very fast, very focused on the important stuff, normally, you know, with some exceptions. But it's much lighter weight, it's much faster. Like, if you tried to start up Visual Studio, it takes like, I don't know, 10 seconds to start up, compared to Visual Studio, which takes 1 second to start up. So that's all just the, it's all just the way that works. Have I published any game on itch.io? Yeah. Well, kind of. I mean, if you go to Challicate on itch.io, you'll find my Game Jam game. You'll find the Bird game demo. You'll find the Legend of Lua demo as well. So I've posted a bunch of games on itch.io. My problem with itch.io, I'm going to go ahead and show this. I'm not signed in, I don't think. Oh, I am actually. So, we'll go to my... Oh, look, here's this is from that video on when I got hacked. I made a fake project here to kind of demonstrate what the fake project that I got scammed with was. But I have 3 games, and the thing that I dislike about itch.io, it's not itch.io's fault, by the way, is that in order to play this game, you need to download it, and it's a zip file. Okay. And then I'm gonna unzip it. I don't like you guys looking at my downloads. I'm gonna unzip it. Okay, so I unzipped it. This is what it looks like. So, what I'm getting at is I'm basically just raw distributing the game in a zip file. And that's not safe. Because if I try to run, where is it? outercore.exe, I think it's not going to work. Yeah, it says Windows protected your PC. And this is because games that are distributed online as zip files, they are very risky to run because they could be anything. And like what I'm doing here with this game, this is the easiest way to distribute your game, is to just pack it up in a zip file and host it online. But in order for someone else to play the game, they actually have to click on the exe, and it says Windows protects your PC, and the only way to get it to run is to click run anyway. And like, I happen to know that this game is safe. Oh, come on. Sorry, it's loading in full screen, but it's not letting me change out of full screen. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't even show it, because it's loading on the wrong window. Here, let's download the bird game, because I haven't seen the bird game for a long time. But this is the same idea. Is distributing games through a zip file is not good. I do not recommend people do that. So I kind of want to take steps into making it easier to publish games on itch.io as like web games. That's what authentication is for. Well, yeah, that's easier said than done. Have you looked up the process of authenticating a zip file and distributing online? Because it's not very easy. So, itch.io though has the option to distribute games as web games, so you can just play them directly in your browser. And I think that that's the best process to share your games, is if there's a way to host your game as a web game, because you can just make a web page for on itch.io and then you can play the game in the web page. That I think is the best way to do it. In fact, I bet if we go to jams and we go to, can I search for GMTK? Like, you can play these games directly in your browser and without having to download anything. This is so much better. And Love2D does have the ability to, I'm sorry, I'm really focused on this awesome game. Oh my gosh, this is cool. Sea turtle. It's the SS Ligma. That's so funny. I actually like that. Okay. Whoa. You played this one? Awesome. Yeah, it was the first one to come up, so it makes sense. So I think that, like, if anyone out there is doing a game jam, making it a web game in the browser is probably the best idea, because your only other alternatives is to, like that person earlier was saying, is to create your game in an authenticated way, which means you register with Microsoft and you pay for a license, and then you have it fully registered, and it's a very big process to do that. That's a process that I do need to go through for Chala Chat, GitHub Chala Chat, because that's something that I'm working on. Here it is. So I'm not signed in right now, but this program here has some like Windows releases, but it's not authenticated. And if someone tried to run this, Windows would also block it because I haven't gone through the authentication steps for Chala Chat yet. For people that don't know, Chala Chat is the overlay above my head. It's reading the chat and displaying it in OBS. So I wrote this code to custom do that because YouTube is kind of under-supported in the space. And if I want other people to use this, I'm gonna need to attach that like license, that thumbprint to it, so that when people download the Windows version or the setup exe, it won't like scream at them. In Android as well, you need to register with Google. Yes, I would say Android and iOS are even more restrictive. So I had some mobile apps on iOS and Android. It was called Necrozone, but they got taken down because if you go on App Store pages, it displays a lot of personal information about the developer. And if the developer is a company, it's going to display a bunch of the company information. But if the developer is a person, it's going to display their personal information. And I did not want my personal information to be displayed, so I just didn't allow it. And so my apps got removed. So what I'm getting at is registering any software involves forfeiting a lot of your privacy. And are browser-based games always safe, though? Probably not always, but they're more safe than downloading a zip, extracting the zip, running the exe, and telling Windows to ignore the exe warnings. That is undeniably more risky. I bet there are loopholes with browser games that cause problems, but I'm very confident that it's more safe compared to distributing exes. I didn't know that you used something other than YouTube to display the chat. Yeah, is that YouTube has like the chat pop-out overlay. Like this is what I'm looking at right now to read your guys' messages. And that's nice, but it's not really good for displaying in like a custom way. I bet that you can just grab the pop-out chat as an HTML and display it above, but it's lacking customization features. Is that it was lacking the customization features, and I really wanted to get it more personalized. What IDE did you guys use at MS? At Microsoft, I used Visual Studio Code for all of my web development stuff, because at Microsoft I did mostly front-end web development. And then if I needed to work on the back end, that was normally using Visual Studio. Or if I was running something end-to-end, that normally required Visual Studio as well. Can I make a game with just a text editor app? Yeah. You can do that with Love2D. Because with Love2D, the only thing you need to run a game is a text file. So I'm going to try and demonstrate this right now. I don't want to show you guys my freaking files. I'm going to go over to... I'm going to call this simple. Okay. So I'm in this new folder called simple. And the way that you create, like this is just an empty folder. And let's say I didn't have an IDE or anything. If I wanted to make a game, I could do this. New text document. And I'm going to call it main.lua. Which, by the way, if you're editing the extensions, that does mean you have to have view show file name extensions in order to see the .lua part. So I changed it to .lua. And then now I can open with any text editor. I'll edit it with Notepad, just because that's funny. Okay, so now we're in main.lua, and I can do love. I'm doing this from scratch. Function love.draw. And then love.graphics.print hello. Okay. So there's our Love 2D game. And now I can run the project by dragging this folder onto my Love executable. And I'll just show that right here. You can do this by if I go over to my programs wherever I have Love installed. Okay, so here's the Love exe. Is love.exe. This is what the shortcut would be. And all you have to do is you just load this into love exe, and then it runs. And then the game pops up, and it's very small, but it says hello. It actually worked. And then from here, you can add all kinds of stuff. You can like add folder sprites. Okay, so then you have a sprites folder, and then that's when you go over and make some images. So and then drag this in there. Whoops! I don't want to drag that in there. That was a bad idea. But I think you get the idea. Is that it's a very simple process. That it's just a series of files and folders with assets in them, and then these text files just reference all those different endpoints. It is pretty simple. Toby Fox makes such good music that they actually created some of the music for Pokemon. Yeah, I know. That is the coolest thing ever. Imagine. Oh, that would be so cool. Good for him. I'm so excited that he was able to get involved with Nintendo music production. Is there a better way to use tiled maps in Love 2D without SDI? Because I had a lot of issues with it, like rendering and resolution. There is no better way to do it without custom writing your own like workaround. So if you're rendering tiled maps, you do need some software, some code that takes those tiled maps and renders them to the screen. Actually, I'm gonna change my answer. Tiled is what I used to use to edit my levels, and it's what I recommend most people use because it's really good. So you edit your levels here, and when you use STI, simple tiled implementation, to import into the game, it actually takes all this tiled data. It takes all these tiled data, and it renders them in real time in the game. But if you didn't want to do that, if you did not want to use STI because it's too complex or too, there's too many problems with it, which there are some, then what you could do is you could go up to File, Export as Image. You could export the whole map as an image, only include the visible layers, and where is this gonna export to? Sure. Okay, and then let's see if I can find that. I don't want to show my files. I keep doing that. Okay, so that was right here. Okay, so it created an image, but as we can see, you can see all the gross pins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide all of those. Because for the tile layer, you don't need that. You would still need tiled to iterate through all the object layers. Okay, let's see if that made it better. There we go. So this is a decent option. Obviously, we don't have the animations because the animations are built into tiled. You would need to use simple tiled implementation to run the animations and have the logic running on that. So if you export it as an image, you wouldn't have the animations. But this is something that I plan to do, actually. Well, maybe I don't plan to do it anymore. But when I was using tiled, I did plan to do this. Rather than render each tile individually, it would be more performant to export the whole map as one big image and then render the image. What do you use for colliders in your game? I use a custom physics wrapper. And I'm gonna open source this at some point, once it's more solid. But in Love 2D, there is a built-in physics module. There's a built-in Box 2D physics module. And it works great. But it is a little bit cumbersome to use. It's a little bit complex. So, I normally like to recommend to people to use what's called some kind of wrapper library. W-R-A-P-P-E-R, wrapper library. That's what this physics.lua is. Essentially, what this does is it takes all of the Love 2D... Like, this is some built-in Love 2D fixture stuff. It's taking some of the complex Love 2D, Box 2D stuff, and it's creating a bunch of simpler colliders. And working with colliders, I think, is a little bit easier. So this all started because there's this GitHub repo called Windfield. GitHub Windfield. And this repo is slightly controversial for a few reasons. One thing is that it's very old. 8 years old. It's been a long time since it's been updated. But what Windfield is it makes using the physics module from Love a lot simpler. I think Windfield is very good because it removes the concept of fixtures and shapes and what's the other one? Fixture, shape, and body. Body, fixture, and shape. It combines them all into a single entity called Collider. And the reason I love that, I absolutely love that, is because I feel like that's how it always should have been. Having to separate everything into body, fixture, and shape is so complex because then you have to know which functions go towards the body and which one goes to the fixture versus the shape, rather than all in one instance. And this wrapper, this Windfield wrapper, I just love the simplicity behind it. I also love BSG rectangles, which is something that they invented for this. It's basically just an octagon, but I think it's really nice. So Windfield, I think, is very good, but like I was saying, there's problems with this. It's very old, and it's archived. It is not being worked on at all anymore. And this is problematic because when Love 12 comes out, you know, they've been saying it's going to come out soon, but it's been a while. But as soon as it comes out, though, this code is not going to work in Love 12. That's been confirmed. Is with the new changes that they're doing to the physics system, they have been telling me that Windfield is not going to work with it anymore. And so I shouldn't recommend it to people. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. This is a point of contention, by the way, is that I have my tutorial on my channel about Windfield, and I do still think Windfield is the easiest and simplest way to work with physics in Love 2D. I do still feel that way. But I agree that Windfield is also problematic because it's not being supported, and it's going to break relatively soon. Since that's the case, I wanted to get ahead of things. And so I made this physics.lua. This is my own Chalicade custom physics.lua. It does very similar things to what Windfield does, but it's more modern. It's more clean because, you know, it wasn't written 9 years ago. That's the big thing. And especially when Love 12 comes out, I'm going to migrate my game to Love 12. Moonshire is going to run on the latest version of Love, probably always, or as long as I support it. So when that happens, like the pre-factor version of the code. If you didn't notice, I've been jumping between two different versions of the code. I have this version called pre-factor. This is before I redid all the code, and this is what it was for most of development. But this version does use Winfield. Winfield is somewhere in here. Yeah, here it is. So this old version of the code does use Winfield, and I was noticing. So like that's another thing, is that people ask me, why do you keep iterating on the same ideas? It's because of reasons like this. It's because of that story I just told with Winfield. Is that I built my game around Winfield physics, which I don't think there's a problem with. But as soon as Love 12 comes out and I want to update that, I would have to either rewrite Winfield to support the new system, or redo all of my physics instances to use something more modern. So that's why game development has all these quirks that you don't even see. This problem that I just discussed with Winfield is a problem that I will have to work on and fix, and no one will even know about it. Nobody playing the game will ever know that I had to spend X amount of time working on this thing. They're going to see the final product, and they're not going to see this time spent working on this thing. It's just invisible work. And game development and software development in general has so much of that. It has so much invisible work where it's just progress that you can't actually see. It's progress that needs to be done. We used to call it like housekeeping. It's just keeping things maintained, maintenance. The Nest Winfield might be amazing, and you might have to switch regardless. Never quit stuff out. I think that this new version that I wrote, wherever it is obviously in the new version of the code, I really like how I organize things. And what I also want to do is a big thing with this physics.lua thing is that it has the ledges and stuff. And again, for some reason the performance is so bad while I'm streaming. It wasn't doing this before. But you have like this thing where you can jump up onto ledges. If it would let me, it won't let me because I'm not jumping high enough. Let's make the hero jump higher so I can jump up there. Jump height is gonna be 30, so I can, let's make it 50. There we go, now you can jump higher. It's so laggy, it's so laggy. But, the new physics wrapper that I made handles this idea where you can jump up onto ledges. So obviously, I can't walk into the walls because it's solid. That uses physics to achieve that. But I can also jump up onto it if I jump high enough. Okay, I have to close this. And before next week, I have to figure out why is it lagging so bad. Do water buckets still shoot fire, or did you fix that? I think they still shoot fire. But I don't know. Most of the time, the management chain doesn't see the benefits of refactoring. Exactly. Yeah, that's another thing, is that there's no business benefit of refactoring. It's just time spent on making things the same, making things continue to work. It's something that you experience in like at Microsoft. I definitely did. Does this program use Python or C++? So Love2D as an engine uses C++, but my game uses Lua. Like all this code is Lua code. So all the code that I write as a developer is Lua code. But the engine that like takes my code and runs it in an efficient, performant way, that code is written in C++. So the engine is C++. That like C++ is very good for low level, almost embedded, just stuff that interacts with the operating system on a very close level is what you would use C or C++ for. And then Lua, it's just feature rich. It's more modern, has a lot of features that's nice to work with games on. Are you feeling better this week? Yes, I am. Thank you for asking. I feel a lot better. So as soon as the new year hit, it was either the flu or COVID or something, but I was very sick. I was sick for 2 weeks straight, and even last week on stream, I was kind of stuffy and I was coughing and I wasn't feeling very well. But this week I feel much better. I'm basically fully healed at this point. I feel a lot better. So thank you for asking. I appreciate that. This stream is a pixel art stream, and I need to get started on this. I'm gonna call this the head layer, and then I'm gonna make a new layer, and it's gonna be called body. Actually, I'm gonna call this one body because it's below. I'm gonna call this one head. So the goal with what I'm doing here is I want to do what I did here. How the player is split up into the different layers. How we have the eyes layer, we have the head layer, and that's helpful for positioning held items with the enemy. And you can like customize it a little bit more. For example, if like I separated the head out, maybe I could swap the head out with a different head if it's a different enemy. So I'm going to go ahead and what the heck? I actually want to duplicate this layer. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and what is going on? Is it? Oh, it's obviously it's because this is down here. Duh. Okay. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and I'm going to get rid of the body on all of these frames, like this. Okay. And then after I do that for all the frames, I'm gonna get rid of the head for all the body shots. There we go. I'll leave that one. That one's fine. So I am gonna spread this out even more. And I'm gonna make like the arm. So like you'll see how time consuming this is gonna be, just getting this all organized. Although once I have all the layers set up, I think it's gonna fly by, because there's not that many frames to do this for. But I should have started doing this earlier in the stream, because this is gonna be kind of like busy work almost. See very beginner crappy animation videos on my channel. I think that you should continue posting them and continue posting them until they're very good. Cause yeah, any animations that I do, any work that I work on is not very good at first. But that's just part of the process. Someone earlier said embarrassment is the price of entry. Yeah, we all get embarrassed by certain things. So the whole purpose, another purpose behind separating the layers out, is that I can take like his hand and make an alternate version where he's holding. So if I look at the player again, when the player is holding a weapon, the arm changes. So there's an arm hold and arm. So this is the regular arm, and this is the arm hold. You can see that it's just like holding the arm up a little bit. So I have a variation of all of these sprites. This is why the layers are so important. Because like, look, we have the walking animation right here, and it's a different arm. So this is when the arm is down. And then I can swap it to arm up. So that's why there's the different layers with the different options. It's just a different scenario based on if you're holding something. So let's see. We have the hold. And like, I don't actually know what the hold is going to look like quite yet. Not like that. It's more like, it looks like it looks like a claw. It like curls in a little bit like that. maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. I think that's okay. Okay, we're gonna leave it like that for now. I'm gonna bring that back. Okay, and then let's see how that's looking. I think I need to get more of the body, so I need to get rid of this arm. This back arm can stay on the body. I get really awkward when I'm not really saying anything, even though I'm kind of focused on the stuff. So I think that's all we need, is we have this arm versus this arm. Oh, they look very similar. I think that this should be like flipped upwards, actually. Sort of like how do you do that? Oh, whoops. No, like that. He's like, oh, he looks like he's like, I'll get you. I kind of like that. It needs to extend out a little bit more. And also the shading needs to be on the bottom, not the top. Is that good? Actually, I do kind of like that. Maybe this pixel here shouldn't be there. There we go. That's what it needed to happen. Is that it actually needed a pixel down there. I think that looks okay. So here's the point of me doing this. I mean, I've kind of repeated this a few times, but the idea is that sometimes the bunyip will not be holding anything, and so the arm will look like this. And in some other scenarios, the bunyip will be holding something, and so the arm will look like this. So picture like imagine he's holding the great sword, kind of like how the player holds the axe. The axe is being held behind the head, and it goes behind the head shape, and you can see the hand is holding it, kind of outstretched a little bit. And that same sort of setup is kind of what I'm going for here, is that the axe would kind of go through the head up through this way if he was holding a weapon. And honestly, I like this pose. I feel like I could use this pose for something even if I don't use this like layered system. Keep posting until it's good. I think that you could keep posting no matter what. You're the one that said that you're the one that, I think that you called it crappy. And if you really feel like it's crappy, then just keep doing it, because every video that you post is gonna get less crappy. And I say that from experience because every sprite that I work on like gets less crappy. I look at the sprites that I was working on a couple of years ago, and they're just not nearly as good as what they are today. They're just not nearly as good. The bunyip is dancing a little bit. I'm trying to think, do I need more than these layers? Because I have the head, I have the hold, and the arm. Do I need to split up the body some more? I kind of think I don't need to. I don't think I need to split up the body anymore, so I think that it's just these 4 layers that I need to worry about. And, that should be good. I love this frame. He's so sad. Oh, eyes. I forgot about the eyes. I do need to split up the eyes. Do I? It depends on how deep I want to go with this, because I don't need to split up the eyes. I could just leave the eyes as is. I guess they are always in the same spot. So the player has eyes separated out. And the idea behind this is that the player can blink. I need to open up this version. In this version, the player can blink. If you look really closely at the eyes, they blink very subtly. But that happens because in the sprite sheet, the eye layer is entirely separate from the main sprite sheet. And you can see that in all of these frames here, the eyes are open. But in the game, the eyes are like a separate entity that blink independently. So I'm wondering, do I want to go through that process for the bunyip? Is that worth it to have it blink? Or is it okay to have its eyes always open? Let's... I will... Let's test it out. So if I did separate the eyes, and honestly, I could probably do this where it's just the, whoops. I'm gonna get rid of everything else around it. I love this. And actually, this is not part of the eyes. It's just these. Okay. And then if I go back to the head, jam, this is definitely a jam. That's actually kind of cool. It's like an anime character that has a blindfold on. So then we combine them. They're now on separate layers. But the whole idea behind this is that there can be a separate eye version. Or like, see how in this version over here, the eyes are sad? But like, what if there were other scenarios where you wanted to have sad eyes for like the standing version? Like, what if there's a cutscene where a bunch of bunyip are standing around and they're sad? It would be nice if I could just, like, swap the eye layer over to the sad eyes, and do it for any particular spot. I'm not sure. Obviously, everything that I'm talking about is just extra work. But then you can, like... I'm gonna make a new version. Or actually, here, I'll just take the sad eyes from over here. Because I like these. I'm sorry I'm not talking as much. I get really in the zone. Whenever I start working on something, I really do focus. Yeah, I think that this is the right direction to take things. Okay, so I am gonna go ahead and do that. But I'm not gonna have these eyes are actually not going to be part of the sprite sheet. The eyes are going to be a separate object. So if I go to the code for this, I think it's actually kind of interesting. I have mob face. And open and close. That's talking about the eyelids, I think. Because, yeah, there's this whole blinking logic, and all this blinking logic is attached to the face. And then it positions the eyes to be like a very specific spot. It's really precise. But all this code is already here and already working. Because I went through this whole process for the player already. Like, I already made it work for this. So making it work for this is not much harder. It's not much harder, it's just time consuming. All this stuff is time consuming, that's for sure. But I think that that's all the layers that we need. So we have the regular arm and then the hold arm. And then we have the regular eyes and the sad eye. I mean, I don't know if we're going to use that, but it's pretty funny. Okay. So let's go through that same process here. And actually, I think that I need to just go through one layer by one and just remove stuff. So like body, let's go ahead and get the body in place. And I can do this on multiple layers at once. I need to get rid of the head on everything. Who are we drawing? We are turning this bunyip, this like little swamp monster, and I'm separating out its layers so that I can be more flexible and hold items. This one's kind of big. No, I can get rid of these. No, I think I leave that one. Yeah, I leave the chin. The chin stays on the body. Oh, also, I need to be removing the arm too. It's not just the head. Yeah, I want to make all the bodies look like this. Oh, I haven't been talking again. I'm sorry about that. Mention features not available in the app. Oh, I didn't realize that. So you can only do that on desktop? Any other game devs in this chat? I know that there's a bunch. There's definitely people that hang out in this chat that make games. It definitely is all skill levels. There's some people that are brand new to it and some people that are pretty experienced. How do you start learning pixel art? What do you recommend drawing first? Whatever I want. Are there specific things that help drawing altogether? Yeah, like everyone starts off not being very good at drawing pixel art because I drew pixel art in Game Maker when I was a kid, and obviously like drawing sprites as a kid, you're not gonna be very good. I was new to it, so no matter what like route you take, the first sprites that you draw are gonna be pretty bad. It takes a while to get a feel for it. I would say even if someone had a lot of artistic experience in other like art fields, I think that pixel art is its own beast where you have to get a feel for when it's it's an exercise in restraint because like you only have like 16 by 16 pixels to work with, and you have to get a whole idea across in so few pixels. It's a different challenge compared to an artist who has a blank canvas. You can draw literally anything. In pixel art, you can't draw literally anything, but you can take literally any idea and convert it into a low-res concept. And it just takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of drawing sprites. So my advice for anyone who wants to learn pixel art is to make your own games. Just make your own simple games and draw your own sprites. But realize that those sprites are not going to look very good. And each game that you make, each small project that you work on, that you keep making sprites for, each one is going to look slightly better than the last one. So you're going to make bad looking sprites at first. The next game is going to look a little bit less bad. The game after that might look kind of good. And then after that point, you're probably going to feel pretty confident that it's going to start being pretty easy. Not easy, but it's going to feel more natural. Do I play an instrument? Yes, I play guitar, and I play bass, and I play saxophone. Do I need to get rid of these hands? I guess I'm going to, but I don't really think I need to. Oh, it's the pixel dimension. For this character, yes, it's 64 by 64 is the amount of canvas space I'm giving the sprite. However, that's very arbitrary because I get a lot of questions asking me about my sprite dimensions, but the truth is it does not matter. If you did 64 by 64, that's fine. If you did 16 by 16, that's fine. And if you did 37 by 12, that would be fine. You could do any, it could be anything. It can be any weird combination. If I go over to the player, oh, here it is. This one is 24 by 24, which is fine. That's actually not that weird. I think I have some weirder ones. 24 is still a pretty normal one because that's a multiple of 4. That's a multiple of 8. How do you brush off playing instruments like that? It's impossible, I swear. Or maybe I just suck at music, I don't know. Oh, because this is how I learned instruments, is that I was in 4th grade, and I signed up for orchestra, and so it was a class. And when you're in a class, and you have to be able to play the instrument to pass, you kind of just learn. And it's the same with taking lessons. When you take, like, guitar lessons, for example, one of the benefits of taking guitar lessons is that someone is holding you accountable. The best part about school is that they hold you accountable. The best part about guitar lessons is that there's some guy that you're going to every week that's going to, like, criticize you or make fun of you if you're not practicing. So you have to do it. You have to practice all the time. And also, a teacher is able to give you exercises that are perfectly appropriate. So you have to be in 4th grade to learn an instrument, and now it's too late. No, but I think that you get the idea is that if a 4th grader can do it by just following practice regimens, then an adult can do it for sure too. So if I was starting from scratch today and I didn't know any instrument, I would just go through the same process that I did back then. Is that I would start with one instrument, start with something that I had an interest in. Can we play your Moonshire demo on Mac? Yes, on Silicon Mac you can. I would start with the instrument because like, at some point in the future, I'm going to want to get better at piano. I took a piano class in college, and I learned the fundamentals, and, like, when I produce my own music, I use a MIDI keyboard, and I play little stuff on keyboard, but I wouldn't consider myself a piano player. At some point, I would like to learn, though, because when I pull up sheet music, I can't play it, and when I try to play 2 parts with both hands, I can't really do it. It's really, really challenging. And if at some point I decide, yes, I'm going to learn how to play piano, I'm pretty confident that, 1, I would get someone else involved to hold me accountable. Either a teacher, like a piano instructor, I would take lessons. It could be a friend, it could be a parent, someone that checks in on you every week and forces you to perform for them. Because even if all you're doing is playing, like, Mary Had a Little Lamb on piano, that's better than nothing. And then the person that you're showing that off to is going to say, okay, next week you're going to show me something a little bit harder. Next week you're going to play Green Sleeves. And next week you're going to play Chopsticks. And then the week after that you're going to play, like, a simplified Beethoven piece. And then each week it's going to get a little bit more complex. And eventually you're going to move on to, like, learning sheet music and playing off of that. And then playing 2 parts at once on both hands. What is that GitHub project, Pixel 3D? It takes any pixel art, it takes any image. It takes any image at all, and it converts it into voxel and displays it. So Chalacade, or no, GitHub Chalacade Pixel 3D. It's actually kind of hard for me to find. I'm not signed in to GitHub at the moment, so it's taking me a second to find all of these. Also, it's funny seeing only my public ones, because I have way more repos than this. But I really like Pixel 3D just because it's proof that, because this is running in a 2D engine. This is running in Love 2D. It's proof that 3D models and effects, all it is it's just being converted into an image. Because, like, this is pixel art, and you're just, like, pretending there's extra sides to it and rendering it in that way. Could you please clarify what you meant by claiming channel name? Claiming channel name. All that I mean, if we're talking about, like, the name Moonshire, he's talking about Pixel 3D again. I always talk about it. I love it. Well, because someone asked. But claiming channel name, all that I mean is when we were talking about naming, like, the game, and I came up with Moonshire, I had to search around for all the different names that I came up with, and if someone else was using it in a meaningful way, then I wouldn't want to use it, because I don't want to compete with them. It's hard to choose a channel name, hard to choose a game name for anything, because it feels like a commitment, and all the good names are already taken. That's the hard part, is that all the good ones are already taken. Moonshire was not my first choice, by the way. I had other choices ahead of that, but they were taken, and Moonshire was the best one that wasn't taken. And I love it. I think it's grown on me. I think Moonshire is an awesome name, but it wasn't my first choice. The thing in Minecraft items when they're dropped on the floor. Yeah, totally. Is that the Minecraft items literally are just, it's exactly like this. It's just a pixel art sprite, and it's converted into like a voxel, like flat plate. It's cool. What was my first choice? I don't remember specifically, but it was like, it already had like a novel series, or there was already a website, or there was already a, something that existed, some meaningful product that was released with the same name. And since that was the case, I didn't want to risk it. I didn't want to use it. No one would really pick Super Mario Bros. As their first choice either, but everyone knows it now. I mean, yeah, actually, that's a really good point. That's a super good point. Is that a good name doesn't have to, like, be immediately obvious. That's such a good example. Super Mario Bros. On the surface doesn't sound like a good name, but it's so ubiquitous it sounds perfect. Can you imagine it being named anything differently? I can't. It's perfect. It's a perfect name. I found the secret to watch this stream. I have it on my Switch and phone, so that if one gets into adverts, it won't get interrupted. Interesting. That's cool. I'm glad to hear that. That's an interesting strategy. Yeah, I have the ads turned down to as low as possible without turning it off. Like, because I think that if you turn it off, it impacts performance of the algorithm. I was on the fence of if I wanted to get rid of these feet, but I think I'm going to. Like that. Then we'll get rid of that. Abdul, thanks for stopping in. Appreciate it. Whoops. I actually want... No. I'll get rid of that. We're gonna get rid of all the head. I love this song. Also, I love this version of the song, because it's like a re-recording. Jam, definitely. Once again, I started focusing on pixel art, and then now I'm not really paying attention. I need to do a better job of multitasking. I think in general I'm not a very good multitasker. I think I have a one-track mind. That's not a terrible thing, but will I ever host a game jam? Yeah, I think I would host a game jam. but I don't think I would host one until my own game is done. I just don't want to. I don't want to work on any game jams until, because this takes up all of my time. Single-threaded Chalky brain. That's exactly what it is. I only have one core, one thread. That's it. This game releasing with GTA 6. Yeah, it'll release in the far distant future. Yeah, I don't know when it's coming out. It's just there's so much work that it's impossible to account for. I keep thinking I'm farther along than I actually am, is what it is. And I also keep changing my mind about certain things. The hopeless creative who changes their mind mid-project. Thankfully, I work by myself. It reminds me of, like, I imagine that certain, like, directors of movies. Imagine, like, a stubborn director of a movie who decides, like, towards the end of production that they want to change how certain storylines play out. And, like, there's plenty of movies that do that, where the director just, like, gets frustrated with something or doesn't like how something turned out, and they change it at the last second. And I bet that's really annoying for everyone on the production crew, because it delays things and it makes things it's more sloppy. I would love a Child Kid Game Jam. I would like that too. I think that would be fun. It's a very big commitment though, to host and to participate in, actually. I mean, a whole weekend is a lot of work to get done. It's the perfect mindset that hurts, like, want to make sure that your project is perfect. I have had the same issue. Yeah, perfection is the killer of progress. How do you handle viewport size in your game for different monitors? That's a good question, and the real answer is just that there's a camera that's looking at the player right now, and this camera is capable of zooming in and out. And it zooms in based on how big the window is. So if I squish this window down, it actually... Whoa. Oh, it's got unsmushed. Okay, so if I smush the window down, it actually does zoom the camera out a little bit so that you can see more of this. Well, does it zoom the camera out more a little bit? It zooms the camera in such a way so that the same amount of vertical area is seen. Because, like, if I blow it up and make it big again, you'll see the exact, like, look, you can see the very bottom part of this person's legs. And when I blow it up, it's actually, I can see it. It's still there. The very bottom part of this person's legs. So it's the same amount of vertical space that's being seen, and the camera just adjusts with the screen size. It's kind of a complicated process. Struggling to make it work well with the UI elements. I think that UI is so difficult because of that. Because the UI... also, you need to decide, do you want the UI to be part of the game world? Or does the UI sit over top of everything? Because if it sits over top of everything, then it doesn't scale with the camera. And if it exists within the game world, then it does scale with the camera. And actually, it probably wouldn't be drawn within the camera. It would be drawn outside of the camera, but through, like, the same perspective. It's really, really complicated. So it's inversely proportional. Yeah, I think so. Have you considered a windy area where all the particles and stuff just go crazy? I think that would be fun. I think that'd be totally fun. I think that the body layer is done. So now I need to go through and do the same thing for the arm layer. And I think it will be easier. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it all in one. It probably would be faster if I would have leveraged, like, 2 different versions of this and did this. There's probably a more efficient way that I could be doing this, but I think that this method is okay. So I'm just gonna get rid of everything except for the arm. Yeah, it's not that long. It's only like 10 seconds per image. This is fine. I do care about doing things in an efficient way, but sometimes if it takes a long time to learn how to do it efficiently, that eats into your time, like, in general. It's like in software development. There's always the question of, do you fix the problem manually, or do you write a script that automates fixing the problem? Because if the problem comes up again in the future, then writing a script is really helpful, because then you can run the script in the future and then fix the problem immediately, rather than manually fixing it every time. But it takes more time to implement something like that, to write us an automated script. And so that eats into any sort of manual progress time that you could be making. That's something that we always had to balance at Microsoft. Is it's ideally you would write a script every time if you're able to, but that takes a long time. And also you need to test it. Anytime you write software, including scripts, you have to test it a lot, and that can be really time consuming too. Can you do CSS-like UI styling with Love2D? No. Yeah, Love2D is very lackluster when it comes to UI. In fact, I don't even know if Love2D has anything built in for UI. It probably has lots of UI libraries. And the UI libraries may take some CSS principles into how they're implemented, but it's not as fleshed out as like HTML and CSS. Those things were designed specifically for UI, but like a game engine really wasn't. That Aseprite scripts are really useful. Interesting. I should look more into that. I've never even looked at Aseprite scripts. That sounds interesting. Because there are some tasks that I do that I feel like, oh, this is kind of mundane. I bet I could automate it. This one, not so much. This one I do kind of need to have an eye for what I'm removing. Whoop. Do I use mouse or stylus? I use mouse. If I'm doing digital art or like high-res art or calligraphy or shading, I do use a stylus because I have a Wacom tablet, or Wacom, excuse me. I have a Wacom tablet, or actually no, it's a Huion. Or I don't know. It's sitting behind my desk. I can't remember what brand it is. It's either Wacom or Huion. I can't remember. I think it's Huion. But like with pixel art, obviously it's less precise because they're big pixels. You're just like clicking on individual sections. Compared to high-res art, it's very precise. A brushstroke with high-res can be very different because a brushstroke in pixel art looks like this. Or if you do it properly, it looks like that. That's a brushstroke. It's just a straight line. But a brushstroke in a high-res like art software, a straight line can look like all kinds of things. It can look far beyond just straight line. Do you prefer Apple or Android? I prefer Android, but I bought an iPhone when they switched over to USB-C. I did buy an iPhone and I used it for a while and I liked it. I thought it was good, but I preferred Android just a little bit more, so I went back. What phone do I use? It's a Google Pixel. It's actually kind of old. I think that I heard a rumor, and you guys might be able to confirm this, that we're going to be entering a probably a shortage of tech supplies, a shortage of RAM, a shortage of storage, and ultimately a shortage of cell phones and any other product that we would buy on a regular basis. So I have not bought a phone for a while. I think it's been over 2 years since I bought because it's a Pixel 8. And I know that RAM is getting more expensive. And this is what I mean. If RAM doubles in price, for example, I mean, that's going to impact the price of any product that uses RAM, which is any game console or, you know, computer or anything that could possibly utilize it. So, or phones, like I was just saying. So if RAM's super expensive, I'm concerned that phones are going to get expensive, and they're already really expensive. They're already crazy expensive. I swear there was a point where tech would go down in price, but now it kind of feels like it's getting more expensive. I swear phones didn't used to be $1,000, but now they are. Oh. I just want to now what I'm doing is I'm doing the hold arm for every sprite. What I'm doing specifically is doing kind of what I did with the player. The player is split up into multiple layers, like the eyes layer and the head layer. This is a necessary step to help with like effects such as holding a weapon behind your head. So like if you look at the player here, there's the axe is kind of like going behind the head, and that's thanks to multiple layers building up the player. And also the eyes blink. If you look at the eyes operate independently from the rest of the face and the head. I don't know why it's really slow. Oh, this is not the right version. This is the version where he doesn't blink. But I'm doing that whole same process for the Bunyip. Did I find a solution for the rake? No, I did not, unfortunately. I need to make sure I put this in the right spot. This is actually kind of tricky. So it attaches... This attaches... I think it goes right here. Yeah, right here. It goes right here. Or is it here? It's here. Yeah, I like that. Because this corner aligns with this dot right here. Okay, so let's do that again. Well, actually, now I need to remove all of ya. Why is that? Am I confused? I think I am. Can do that. Actually, this is kind of funny. I might be able to like copy the whole 16 by 16 frame like this and just paste it in like that, and it'll align. Unless he's like bobbing, which he is bobbing. So let's do this. So there's that, and it's down like this. Yeah. I love this pose. It looks like he's going, "Oh, I'm gonna get you. Oh, you've done it this time." That's what it sounds like to me. Or that's what it looks like. Let's keep going with this. Once I separating sprite from hand placing via code, you manually place them in each sprite. That's kind of what I'm doing, but the reason why is look at how the hand behaves here. In this example up here, the hand looks exactly the same each time, but in most of these sprites, the hand does look pretty different as the frame changes, especially like in this one and in this one. It's actually the hand is going to be changing shape a lot more in these frames. So up here, I probably could have just kept this as one separate object, but down here it's not nearly as feasible because you can see the hand change shape in lots of places, including this one up here too. Any way to find your stream music playlist somewhere? No, I really should post it somehow. Because the thing about the playlist is it's all like MP3s. It's all music that I have myself. So I can't distribute that. But I could maybe distribute like some kind of list or host a web page that shows the currently playing and upcoming songs or something that you could vote on. I think that would be fun too. The sprite to the right wants a hug. Yeah, he's like, aw, give me a hug. This is the sprite when you like get hit and he's being knocked away. Okay, these look good. I might get rid of this pixel here. And then arm can just hold that. Oop. There we go. That's better. Okay, back over to hold. Okay, is this just me or are they doing the Italian hand pose? Hey, a little bit. We were talking about Toby Fox music earlier, and I don't think he did this song, but he did other songs in Scarlet and Violet. Or actually, sorry, this is Sword and Shield. He did one song in Sword and Shield. He did the Battle Tower music. Oh yeah, I want to decide, how do I want... Should it still be holding? Yeah, I think I'm going to try and make this arm look like it's holding, even though he's being knocked back. Yeah, so let's actually get rid of all of this. He did the Area Zero song in Scarlet Violet, I think. I think he did. I think he did that too, and I think there's a couple other ones in Scarlet and Violet that he did, beyond just that one. You think it's fine if I use Love 2D in my second commercial games, even though I can use Unity? You can use whatever you want. Something that I try to clarify with people is that it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, dude. I recommend using the one that you like the most, because the hardest part about finishing a game is finishing it, is getting to the finish line. Is like spending all your time, spending years on the same project. So if you're gonna spend years on the same project, you better like using the engine. So don't choose Love 2D just because like someone on the internet told you to. You should use whatever you think is best. Not just what you think is best, use what you like the most, because it's more than just what you think is best. They all can make good games, is what I'm trying to get at. And if they can all make good games, then it doesn't really matter. That's bad. That's okay. Oh yeah, I like that. I think that's fine. Okay, we're gonna keep it like this. That's fine. That actually looks pretty good. He did the Terror Raid battle theme too? Nice. Yeah, there's some good music in that game. Even though, like, I like the Pokemon games, and I play them, recently I've been a bit disappointed with some of the level of quality they've been providing. but the music still always slaps. And especially Legend ZA, some of my favorite music. It's so good. And they got like Insane in the Rain music to do some of that. It's really awesome. Roy BTV, hi, welcome in. Last second of stream. Man, dude, time flies by. Whenever I like actually get sucked into working on something, I just zone out. Okay, this is another one where I need to adjust the hand. I need to focus a little bit more. Because it's, I need to use, like, one of these up here. You know, before I continue on with the hold, I think I'm gonna do the head first. Because I need to see what the head looks like for all of these too. Oh, should I do the eye thing too? At least you got some work done. Oh, I totally did. I'm very happy about that. Because this is something I've been wanting to do. And like this kind of task is really nice because it doesn't take much concentration. And I can still kind of chat with chat a little bit. But it's still pretty hard, you know, at times. I think that I'm actually gonna make this pixel blue. No, it's gonna be down like that. I'm gonna go for like 10 more minutes because I'm still feeling in the zone. Actually, I think I do need... Whoop! Oh, come on, I keep pressing the wrong button. Okay, I need this pixel, but I don't need the other one. Yeah, okay, I don't need these. As I'm doing this, I do have to make sure that I'm not removing too much from each layer. I'll do the eyes later. That's definitely not as important. Banger. This is like the sharpest head. I think I'm gonna get rid of the chin here. Yeah, normally it just goes to his chin. I'm gonna get rid of that too. Look how sad he looks. He's so sad. Poor guy. Whoop. Oh, come on. It looks so sad, I know it does. Once again, I'm getting sucked in. I'm so focused on the bunyip. I keep forgetting the hotkeys too, because you'll notice I'm switching between like the square select and the eraser. Those definitely the most useful right now. I can never sit and stream working on something. I'm really glad you can, because ever since the first stream I joined in December, I've enjoyed myself. Awesome! That's so nice of you to say. Thank you. That's so nice of you to say. If I'm being honest, I struggle with it. Especially if you watch my earliest streams. It's very clear that I wasn't comfortable. And if I'm being honest, sometimes I still feel uncomfortable at times. When I'm coding, especially. I feel like I make myself look really foolish whenever I'm coding on stream. Because coding takes 100% of my focus. I really have a hard time talking or reading chat and working on any code, just because there's so much, there's a big chain of logic that goes into making code, because you have to think about all of the other code surrounding it, and trying to like process all that information in order. It's easy to get interrupted, and if you get interrupted while trying to plan out your like pipeline, your plan, it like ruins the whole flow and you have to start over. So like that's something I've noticed that I really struggle with while streaming. I don't know if that's something I can get over, or if I just need to practice more with, or if maybe I just shouldn't code on stream. I could just like there's certain coding things I could do, certain mundane tasks that I could probably do on stream. Always some questions, and then you get into those questions, and I, for example, would lose all my focus. I mean, it's true. And I mean, it's happened like 100 times on this stream already, where I was talking about something, and then someone would ask a question, and I'd start talking about that question instead. And I love doing that. Like, it's really, really fun to just chat and answer questions. I love it. But in terms of productivity, I wouldn't say it's particularly productive. Okay, that's a lot better. So this head is very similar in all these scenarios. This is something that possibly could have been made into like just an item that sticks to the object. double English trauma. Yeah, English is kind of a hard one, but I use the word logic a lot. Give us a game jam. Yeah, at some point. Like filing your taxes. I have to file. It's funny you mentioned that, because there's a tax form I need to do like within the next few days, because I had to send out some tax forms for some people that I commissioned. You should be filling your taxes on stream. I think that would lead to some problems, but I like that idea. Okay, we're past time. I'm ready to call it quits, but this was a good stream. I'm glad I was able to get some stuff done. I think next week I'm going to try doing a similar process with the Kotengu, or maybe condense him. I'm not sure, but I'll plan something more concise next week and more planned out. But I appreciate y'all being here, and I will be back next week. Here's a question: what's the first 4 and last 12 characters of your credit card? That's a very good question, but I think I'm gonna keep that information to myself. And on that note, I'm gonna call it quits for the day. Thank you so much for being here. It was a very, very good stream. And I will be back next week for yet another Moonshire Monday. Bye, everyone.